Well, welcome everybody. We know that some folks are continuing to join us, but we're going to go ahead and get started. We've just got an hour together this afternoon and an incredible panel lined up, so we want to make sure we have plenty of time for your questions and their remarks. I'm Kirsten Vermeulen, Executive Director with CIVIC, joined by my colleague Jess Welser, also on the line. If you have any questions, certainly feel free to reach out to either of us. We're here to support you. We have a pretty exciting topic on hand today, and it's one that comes up quite frequently in the CIVIC community. It's strategic partnerships for good. We all know that building long-lasting and high-trust, mutually beneficial partnerships is both an art and a science, and it's really a driver for deeper impact within your organization, the community, and of course, your partners' organizations. So we've got a couple of partnerships to share with you today that absolutely model successful strategic partnership. And so we want to have an opportunity for them to share their perspective, both sides of the partnership, and then also open it up to Q&A following their remarks. We have one of our esteemed volunteers with CIVIC who serves on our programs committee today, who's going to moderate, Amy Moynihan with Ground Floor Media. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panelists and then turn it over to Amy for handling the actual panel this afternoon. But welcome all and thank you for joining us. So first up, we've got Judith Ackerman. She is Senior Manager of Development for Metro Caring. In that role, she leads fundraising and the opportunity to partner with individuals, businesses, and foundations. They are, of course, addressing the root causes of hunger and working to end hunger here regionally. She brings a gift of storytelling and inspiring others to her work, and I'm certain we're going to experience that today. We also have Sarah Kurth on the line. She is Outreach and Program Director for Denver Community Credit Union. She's been there since 2012, leading their CSR and outreach strategies. And she really focuses on engaging and empowering the staff and stakeholders through their CSR program and driving collaboration and training for employees. She brings deep experience and knowledge in the nonprofit sector. So she is one of those sector jumpers. So certainly has appreciation for both sides of the partnership development. We also have Kelly Duncan on the line. Kelly is President and CEO of Community First Foundation. She joined the foundation as President and CEO in February of 2019. Previously, she worked for a number of nonprofits and business and social impact organizations. She also served 11 years for the Colorado Health Foundation and grew into the VP of Philanthropy there. And she also did work as the National Director for 10-10-10. Also happy to share with you that she's a newer board member for the Denver Metro Chamber Leadership Foundation. So welcome, Kelly. And then we have Kelly Kaminskis, and she is President of Retail and Digital Banking for FirstBank. She has been with FirstBank since 2004 and served in a variety of roles there. I think it speaks so highly that FirstBank has such incredible retention. Certainly an important aspect of their culture is the work they do in community. So excited to learn more about that from Kelly. Welcome. So now it's my pleasure to pass it off to Amy Moynihan. She is the Senior Director of Communications for Ground Floor Media, a communications agency here in Denver, and a CIVIC advocate and member and supporter. So thank you for that. For the past decade, she has worked with clients from nonprofit, government, and of course, business in sectors ranging from healthcare to energy, food, beverage, and retail. She's worked with a number of local and national organizations. She started her work in this space while connecting Starbucks' passion for parks and restoring a portion of the trails and gardens here in Denver's City Park, and that really got her hooked on storytelling and purpose-driven programs. So we know that she's also a graduate of the CSR program, the CU Center for Ethics and Social Responsibility. And so one of our local experts in the space, and again, a volunteer with CIVIC and our programs team. So we're so pleased to have you here today, Amy, and thank you for moderating our conversation. Over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kirsten. And thank you all for being here today. We know life, work is so busy and Zoom fatigue is real. So But we're in for a treat today as our panelists kind of talk through best practices for developing successful long-term partnerships. We keep hearing over and over again how this past year proved how crucial partnerships are. We're hearing that relationships truly matter. So many of us have had to quickly evolve and adapt partnerships, programs, and especially budgets in new creative ways. But most importantly, the pandemic has allowed us to ask more questions and take time to listen. And by that slowing down, and I almost feel like that should be in air quotes, we've been able to evaluate and better understand each other's needs. So today we will first hear from Sari and Judith, who will share about their partnership's evolution and building trust. And then we'll hear from Kelly and Kelly, who will share about going beyond financial contributions and leveraging shared values. We'll come back and we'll have a quick Q&A session with the panelists. So please share questions in the chat. And we'll try to get to as many as we can within the session time. And I'm just really excited about having this conversation. So I think I will pass it on over to Sari and Judith.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you, Sarah, for joining me on today's panel. I'll let you share a little bit of how you came to Metro Caring, and then we can talk a little bit more about the partnership.
Absolutely. So Metro Caring is just really an exemplary organization, and their work reflects their values and mission. So that was something that really attracted me. They're very inclusive. They seek to empower their clients, which are some of the values we share at Denver Community Credit Union. And what they do is so much more than just distributing food. Not that distributing food on its own isn't a huge undertaking. They have a really holistic approach and focus, which I really admire. And, working with organizations whose missions resonate with stakeholders helps when cultivating engagement internally and externally. And when it aligns with your company's mission, it's even more powerful. So as a hunger relief organization, that is a mission that really resonates with our staff and stakeholders, because most know somebody who's experienced food insecurity or have themselves experienced it at one point in their life. And we're able to share Metro Caring as a resource in our community to help people who are experiencing food insecurity, as well as continuing to have an impact and partner with them in different ways. And that values alignment just made a really big difference to be able to have a longer term relationship and engage more deeply on different levels. Personally, I seek nonprofit partnerships where we can help build capacity and assist with needs that the organization have. Sending an influx of volunteers on one day isn't always a good fit. It's not always helpful for every organization. And most of us know who have nonprofit backgrounds and work in CSR that nonprofit partners typically want longer term partnerships, right? It makes a lot of sense to invest in that way. And some of those partnerships really develop organically over time. New needs emerge, changes happen in the needs of nonprofit community and particular organizations. So it's really just a matter of connecting with them. And frankly, our staff just love Metro Caring, and it really makes all the difference. Sending people to volunteer at Metro Caring and the enthusiasm that they had, seeing their mission in action in the market where clients can go and select their own food that meets their dietary preferences and what's culturally relevant to them, just was really, really powerful and cemented our relationship and deepened it over time. I don't want to jump too far ahead.
My headset went out, and so I just need to confirm if everyone can hear me, because I lost Sarah for a second. Okay, great.
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. And I'm assuming you're all looking at me because it's my turn to speak. One of the things that stands out so much with Sarah and the Denver Community Credit Union as a strong partnership, it starts out so simply in just being asked what our greatest needs are. And that sounds so simple, but in this day and age where all of you CSR professionals are striving to demonstrate impact and have a lot of reporting demands and metrics that need to be a part of your program, sometimes partnerships forget to just say, well, what is it that's most important to you? What is the greatest need in the community? And with the Denver Community Credit Union, just being asked that makes all the difference, because I agree, sometimes coming in for one day of service a year can be a heavy lift for a nonprofit when it doesn't go hand in hand with exactly what is going to support the community. So one example that I really, really love is that Sarah came to me about a day of service, but wanted to understand what were some of the challenges and obstacles that we were experiencing at Metro Caring. And this was a few years ago. And at the time, what we had noticed is we had so many families coming to Metro Caring, waiting in our welcome center. And while they were shopping for their food or attending a nutrition program, you know, what did they do with their kids? And we had this children's area, but it was sort of makeshift. And we really wanted to bring it up a notch from a safety perspective and oversight perspective for folks to feel comfortable participating fully in our services, but not worrying about having to get childcare to come to us for an hour or two. And Sarah, our relationship isn't strictly financial. It's not about a transaction of what type of contribution can the Denver Community Credit Union make. So Sarah leveraged her grant writing skills and actually applied for a grant through one of her credit union's providers in order to receive funding to upgrade our children's area with educational items, educational toys, and a full-on walkie-talkie system, like a paging system, so that the caregivers, parents, moms attending Metro Caring programs throughout the building could be reached in case of an emergency. And so that not only was that funded because we received the grant, but then during that day of service, all of the Denver Community Credit Union employees came in and they actually cleared out all of the old things, put in all of the new things. And that was such a bigger story for you to be able to tell than just, you know, we sent 20 volunteers for 5 hours and they came and sorted food. So I really, really love that. And when it came time, you know, when COVID-19 hit all of us and the in-person experiences were no longer available, that didn't stop our partnership. You looked for creative ways to identify other needs that were important to Metro Caring at the time. And I don't know if you want to share the example about this super pallet jack. I don't want to steal your thunder with the story.
No, not at all. I learned a lot about electric pallet jacks. That was not my area of expertise, but ended up being such a helpful capacity building tool. So, you know, something I didn't think about is that during a pandemic, when we're supposed to socially distance, you don't want to be in close proximity to a coworker to pull 2,000 pounds of food on a manual pallet jack. So we were able to write another grant with Judith's assistance. I was able to secure funds from the Mountain West Credit Union Foundation. So that's an industry partner of our credit union. And we were able to help them secure that piece of equipment that made a really big difference in safety and efficiency for the organization. And yeah, it's just something that would not have come to my mind as a funder, but I was so happy to connect with Judith and have her touch base with her team and figure out what makes the most sense. That was obviously not something that we came in and put together. I would not trust a bunch of credit union employees to put together equipment like an electric pallet jack. That's a different area of industry expertise, but yeah, it was fantastic. And, you know, I think just continuing that dialogue and communicating about what are the interests of our employees, what are the needs of the organization has really gone a long way. Another example during the onset of the pandemic was that Metro King really needed tote bags. They were distributing food to 3 times as many community members and neighbors, and reusable, large, sturdy tote bags. And that was really easy to help with because we had a lot of tote bags with our logo on them that were intended for events that were canceled. So we had hundreds and hundreds of them. And it was an absolutely yes, Judith, here you go. How can I get them to you? And then I was able to encourage my peers in the business and credit union community to do the same. And it wasn't an added expense for people. They'd already paid for this swag. It was sitting in marketing closets across Metro Denver, and was just a really tangible way to make a difference. And, you know, Metro Caring really does a great job of recognizing partners as well in ways that I wouldn't think of. For example, those tote bags, there was a beautiful photograph taken, I think by a professional photographer who was volunteering at Metro Caring, of a community member carrying the bag with fresh produce sticking out of it. And it ended up going out in a lot of communication. It was not something I asked for. It was not something that was a requisite for the give in any way, but was just much appreciated and really easy to share with our stakeholders so they can see the impact that giving a bag to a hunger relief organization has.
And I think the last example I would love to share is how this partnership truly goes both ways. And it's not just about the community that Metro Caring works with and how the Denver Community Credit Union supports that group of people, but how we in turn can help be a resource to the customers and clients and members of the credit union. And so Sarah and I have had conversations about what resource materials can we as an organization provide to you. So when your tellers and your phone customer service representatives are speaking to your clients, they may identify a need, and Metro Caring wants to be a resource for referrals in case somebody is struggling with food insecurity. Sometimes, their financial information would indicate such a thing, in making sure that that we're available and that we're reaching as many people as possible who might benefit from working with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And when every time we've run a giving drive, we've had people reach out to us because we engage our stakeholders, members, employees, vendors, partners in those drives, and they'll say, hey, I have somebody who said that they have a need for food. Where can they go to get help? So it's really a wonderful, inclusive resource to share with our community members, because Metro Caring really treats community members and neighbors with dignity. There's no application process where you have to prove your income and the need. And they're really just an empowering organization. So it's been great to be able to refer people who are experiencing food insecurity to Metro Caring.
Thank you, Judith and Sarah. That's awesome. I love the unique pivot that you did with the tote bags, and just kind of the conversation of ongoing dialogue and just saying, what's the need and how do we help address it? So thank you for sharing that. I look forward to having more of a discussion when we have questions coming up. So I think we'll hand it over to Kelly and Kelly now.
Thank you, Amy. And I think we have a presentation to accompany our talking points, because if you're anything like me on Zoom, having both that visual and auditory connection helps quite a bit. So I'm really excited to get to talk to you about a partnership that has been ongoing since 2007. So Community First Foundation and FirstBank have been together putting on an annual Giving Day, Colorado Gives Day. And I'd be remiss if I didn't first say thank you to everyone in the audience who may have participated in Colorado Gives Day. And second, asked you to mark your calendars for this year's Colorado Gives Day, which is December 7th. And if we could go to the next slide, please. So the timeline of Colorado Gives Day, we started in 2007, and I always like to share this story because I can take no credit for starting Colorado Gives Day, so I can really brag about it without being egotistical. So in 2007, that was the year the very first iPhone came out, and it was a time when we were all probably still renting our movies from Blockbuster. And yet the leadership at Community First Foundation at that time recognized that while people weren't doing a lot of shopping online, and they certainly weren't donating money to nonprofits online, they saw that things were going to move in that direction. And they also recognized that it was going to be pretty expensive for all kinds of nonprofits to have to set up this technology for themselves. And so they envisioned a platform that could be shared among nonprofits that could help them take donations online. And so it was really prescient in the direction that things were going. And so Colorado Gives, an online giving platform. At the time, we called it Giving First, but it was born in 2007. And then in 2010, we decided that we could use this platform to really celebrate nonprofits in Colorado through a giving day. And on our very first giving day, we went out in partnership. It wasn't just Community First Foundation, it was Community First Foundation and FirstBank. And I'd love Kelly to talk a little bit about why FirstBank decided to join us with a giving day that we had no idea was going to be successful. I think our goal on that very first giving day was $5 million.
I think I can't take credit for the decision either, but from what I know, there's so many great organizations in Colorado and so much need that we have seen throughout the years. So we're really looking for a way to try to lift up as many organizations as we could. And so this was an opportunity where you could impact hundreds, now to thousands of nonprofits at the same time. And that really appealed to us.
And we felt incredibly fortunate to have a partner like FirstBank, whose motto is giving for good, because what better alignment could there be with giving for good than this day of promoting good through the Colorado nonprofits? And you can see, so our goal was 5 million. We beat it the first year, 8.4 million, and the growth has really been exponential. And that we can attribute to a fantastic partner in FirstBank, but also to all the nonprofits who are on the site, who are really marketing machines and getting the word out and engaging and activating their donors to make it successful, and to all of the Coloradans who participate. So it really is a community event, and we're so proud of the success that we've had. And last year was 50 million. It was our best year ever, and we're hoping that this year is even better. So if we could go to the next slide, please. And so this is just some highlights of what it looked like in 2020. I think this is less important than the partnership. So I'd love to get to the next slide, and we'll talk a little bit about the partnership basics. And so we started this partnership as friends and truly as partners. Like, we were launching it together. We didn't come to them and say, hey, we have this great idea that we know is going to work. Will you sponsor it? We had someone on our board from FirstBank who said, we want to join you in making this successful because we really think it could have lasting positive impact in the community. And to this day, we don't have a contract with FirstBank, and yet they commit to us every year that they will fund prizes for the nonprofits who participate. They will help us seed an incentive fund. We jointly seed the incentive fund with $1 million. They agree to that every year. And we have an agreement that we sign every 3 years, and we talk about and negotiate the agreement, but have specifically said we don't want it to be a contract. We want to continue this as partners and as both of us hanging our hats on this success. And so Kelly's going to talk a little bit about how these basics apply to FirstBank, and I'll jump in and talk about how they apply to Community First Foundation.
Sure. You might think the partnership basics, you have to have the same first name and a similar haircut and some cool glasses, but it actually is more than that. Our why is, our mission statement is banking for good, and we break that up into 3 pieces. It's banking for good for employees, banking for good for customers, and then banking for good for our communities. And it's rare that you have an initiative that can hit all 3 of those things. It's been great for employee engagement and attracting people. People want to work at a company that is civically minded. It's great for customers, and it's obviously great for our community as well. Another thing in terms of strengths, I think, FirstBank has a presence and a brand, particularly in Colorado, but then working with Community First Foundation, just the reputation and ability to support this type of initiative in the way it needs to be supported. Can't be anyone's, part-time job at the bank. We really needed a great partner to support it in the way it needed to be supported. And then just in it, as with any relationship, just communication is the key. And just, I think we have a wonderful dialogue, really respecting each other and going back and forth with any concerns. working on the logo together and inviting other people to participate as incentive fund sponsors. Really having those open conversations, trusting each other, to be honest, is the key to making this partnership be as great as it can be.
And I think from Community First Foundation, so one of the things around the limits that we think about is coloradogives.org runs 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, but FirstBank can't commit to running an online giving platform 365 days a year. They have a bank to run. So they just join us in really branding and co-owning Colorado Gives Day. And so we know that's the limit. That's where they really come in. They get an equal say on what the logo looks like. They get equal say on who our media partner is. They have equal say on what the promotions are going to look like. And they have equal say on any other partners that we may bring in to work on that particular day. But on all the other days of the year, they let us work with who we're going to work with without interfering or and actually what's more is they do a lot of support. We get so much more than just monetary support from FirstBank in this effort. And I think that's where the beauty of this partnership really lies. And would love to talk a little bit, if we go to the next slide, about what some of that beyond the money looks like. So I'll let Kelly talk about some of the things that they do for us beyond the money, and then I'll talk about some of the things we do for them beyond just the money.
So the first part is serving on the board. Just making sure we have a seat at the table, we feel comfortable with the direction, and that we're always just really connected to, particularly to Colorado Gives Day, but overall to Community First Foundation has been very valuable in this partnership. But another thing that we offer is, as with any big day that's trying to attract a huge amount of donations, there are technology scaling types of things that we can offer, that we do at the bank, as well as cybersecurity, making sure that on a day where you're going to process $50 million in payments, you want to be very confident that everything is going to work well. So we do tabletop exercises with the team at Community First Foundation, and that's been a great partnership. And then you'll see on a slide just kind of the advertising that we support around it in our Pay It Forward campaigns, just connecting our customers and our followers to Colorado Gives Day as a whole, but also to our brand.
And then some of the things we do, clearly we don't give FirstBank money, but some of the things we do beyond just that brand recognition and partnership recognition for Colorado Gives Day is we actually run their employee giving program, and we do that at no charge to FirstBank. And it's a way for them to really build on that engagement in a day that they're all in to support. We also offer them the seat. We've had a FirstBank employee on our board, I think as far back as I can remember. And as many of you know who have FirstBank employees on your board, they're terrific, terrific board members. We always get the most engaged, active, and they're that critical friend that you need that is also 100% supporter of the organization and the effort. So really lucky to have them on our board. As you'll see in one of the latter slides, we also feel that their participation in Colorado Gives has been incredible brand awareness for FirstBank. And we'll show you what some of the results of surveys look like that. And then that becomes a value add for their customers. It really enhances their brand, their employee giving, their employee retention, and the customer service that they can support. We enhance it. We don't take any credit for it, but we think we can enhance the great work that they're already doing. And then what we both do together and both get out of it is that co-branding. We do the media, the marketing, and the promotions together with equal say and equal approval. And then we agree on.
Why wear a coat when you could wear a Grizz coat?
Oh, well, you'll hear it in a second. Let's go there. The incentive fund and prizes. This is perfect. So the next is, we'll show you, I think Kelly alluded to this. So go ahead, Kelly.
So we build marketing around this day. So you'll see just an example here if you want to go ahead and play that, Jeff.
Why wear a coat when you could wear a Grizz coat? People look at me and they think I'm just wearing some kind of costume. But it's so much more than that. It's a lifestyle. I guess the internet felt the same way, since we raised $29,000 in crowdfunding. But as important as bear coats are, there's a better use of your money on Colorado Gives Day. With so many nonprofits to choose from, you can find something that matters to you.
So that was just a little tongue-in-cheek example, but we also do pay it forward days where we have done things like go to a restaurant and pay for everyone's bills within the everyone's bills in the restaurant, going to a vet clinic and paying for vet bills for the day. And those are a hit both with our employees and customers, and then obviously the people that are getting the benefits of those services as well. I pretty much cry every year after seeing some of those pay it forward videos. So, you know, they're pretty touching.
Next slide, Jess. So the other thing that we've been working with, we just want to keep watching that ad. It's so good. So the other thing that we get beyond money is really engaging customers. And so you may all know that we seed the incentive fund. We started at $1 million. It boosts every donation that's made on Colorado Gives Day. And that was great when the total was $8 million. When the total is $50 million, we want to bigger incentive fund to make it more attractive and to give a little bit more to the nonprofits. So we have worked in partnership with FirstBank to launch a campaign to engage more corporate sponsors in Colorado Gives Day. And we've been very clear about who we can engage, who we can't engage, but even more, FirstBank has agreed to work with their customers that they know are really interested and excited about FirstBank and make those introductions so that we can make the ask to those customers in a way that feels both authentic and genuine and not too salesy for either FirstBank or Community First Foundation. So that's been another terrific way that FirstBank is given to us. And we can go ahead if we just skip to that last slide. If there's any businesses here who are interested, you take a quick look, but we'll send this out to you if you want to sponsor Colorado Gives Day. We would love to have you join us. And then finally, I'll have Kelly talk to you about this brand awareness they get through the day.
Yeah, I think one of the questions I get is, you know, how do you measure the success of the partnership? And Community First Foundation has been great in gathering data. They did a survey of all the nonprofits that participated last year, and they received over 2,600 responses. But you can see with over 82% of people connecting Colorado Gives Day with FirstBank, it's amazing in terms of the brand awareness that's associated with our partnership on Colorado Gives Day. It's been great.
So that's all we had. Would love to answer any questions that people have, and just I know I've said it multiple times, but it feels beyond. This feels like our program. It doesn't feel like FirstBank has joined us or we've joined FirstBank, but we both collectively feel the same ownership, pride, and when something doesn't go the way we would like, the same sort of disappointment in course correcting. So it's a partnership in the truest sense of the word.
Thank you, Kelly and Kelly. That was great. I love the bear coat commercial. We should watch it again. One of the things that I really appreciated you guys putting together was a slide on going beyond the money, and I think that's so important. So I would love to hear from Sarah and from Judith, kind of what are some of the things that you guys have engaged in that goes beyond the money that you could share with us?
So many things. Well, I believe that this session started with a conversation around, you know, some of the constraints that, you know, nonprofits and corporate partners experience related to budget. And so the relationship has to go beyond the money because the money fluctuates from year to year. And so with Metro Caring and the Denver Community Credit Union, I think Kelly and Kelly actually just touched on this. raising awareness for our organization beyond the Denver Community Credit Union has truly been one way that Sarah has been a wonderful partner. In fact, tomorrow she's bringing a group of people to Metro Caring to volunteer, which is through a peer network of professionals that she's a part of. I think also looking at committee membership, board membership is another opportunity, as well as in addition to just traditional volunteerism, we've discussed skills-based volunteerism and bringing the financial education opportunities that the credit union provides to Metro Caring. We've had discussions about what different languages is that financial education provided in, and looking at their business and saying, you know, you're providing this to the community, here's what our community is looking for. And so not only can Sarah provide expertise, but we can provide expertise in saying, here's what our community is asking for. Again, it's just about keeping the lines of communication really open and looking at a long-term partnership with value throughout the year. We always look to, at the end of the year, be able to demonstrate what the impact has been for that storytelling component. And it really, our goal is to just be part of your company's fabric of your culture, for there to be consistency, for the relationship to go really deep. Nobody in the CSR world has the ability to have hundreds of different partnerships going on at the same time. I mean, you're a team of one typically. And so, those are a few things. I don't know, Sarah, if you want to add to how we go beyond the money. I feel like we mostly go beyond the money.
We do, and I had a really unfortunate timing to lose power for 10 seconds. So I missed some of what you said. But yeah, we've partnered in a lot of ways. I know I heard you mention board and community service. Again, just bringing in different partners, vendors to do the hands-on volunteering. And I'll do this earlier, but we engage all of our stakeholders in giving drives on behalf of members. It's a wonderful organization to vendors and partners love doing networking with our vendors and partners, business partners in particular, sponsor some of our CSR programming, including lunch for volunteers who go to do team building at Metro Caring. And then they get a shout out from our organization to our employees. And that's our B2B businesses, as well as some of our consumer facing organizations that we partner with. So there's just a lot of different ways. And it all started with a food drive in 2016 and became really an embedded part of our culture. Our departments competed against each other for who could donate the most food per weight by pounds. They competed over a gold spray painted can on a trophy that we made internally kind of as a joke, but people go crazy for it. And then as we started to send our staff to volunteer hands-on, they just fell in love with Metro Caring and the work that they do. And so their commitment just solidified more and more and more. And we kept finding new ways to engage and participate. And I just feel that, investing and integrating as much of your organization as you can into the mission of a nonprofit partner that really resonates is fantastic. We are not a huge corporation like a Google, so we have to be really, really strategic with our funds and our resources. And Metro Caring is just a great partner to be able to do that with.
That's so great. I love the integration piece. So how have you guys, speaking of integration, kind of like keeping folks engaged throughout the year for that long-term piece, how have you incorporated some of your C-suite teams into partnerships? Because we know that also helps go a long way.
Well, I know that Kelly mentioned this, but one way we did was partnering together on the incentive fund and agreeing to bring that to our customers. So we brought that in front of our senior leadership team to get kind of the buy-in before connecting with our customers on that. And it's been very successful, just getting some great sponsors like CHAFA and some other excellent organizations on board to help support the incentive fund in a very intentional way, as Kelly mentioned.
And for us, I plan quarterly team building, hands-on volunteering for our management team. Excited to have our first one of this year. It's been on hiatus due to the pandemic next month. And getting our executive team and any level of employee really on the ground, seeing the impact of the giving that they do from a distance, whether it's donating funds, donating food, seeing it come to life with the vibrancy of the market at Metro Carrying and the work that is done there, really just is so powerful. And there's no substitute for bringing our employees on site. So that is something we've missed. We've adapted and done a lot of shifting and engaging in different ways during the pandemic while social distancing, but people are really, really eager to get back out there. And in fact, one of our executive's sons volunteered with Metro Carrying all summer long. He's a high school student, and while he was off for the summer, he was there. And our executive was very happy to have her son occupied and doing good work during the day while she was working. And it was a win-win. One of our executives championed the renovation of the children's area and was there hands-on renovating. And again, there's just no substitute for that, really getting people out there. I am not in the C-suite, but I joined the board of directors of Metro Carrying this year, which I was really excited to be able to deepen my engagement personally. I started off volunteering with a committee last year and joined the board this year. So, and we find, that across with our nonprofit partners, the deeper the engagement and the longer term the partnership, it means that we're layering and really integrating and partnering with an organization on a lot of different levels. So we're providing a lot of pro bono financial education, or we have an employee who serves on a committee or board. We really focus on that deeper impact as opposed to one-off sponsorships and giving initiatives. And that is the primary way that we give back to our community, is our pro bono financial education. We do train the trainer workshops for nonprofits, businesses, government agencies, libraries, and a lot of financial literacy classes and schools, and again, all across the nonprofit community and businesses that request it, as well as free one-on-one coaching. So that's our real area of expertise, but our staff also just really love the hands-on volunteering piece. When you help people with money all day long, you don't necessarily want to do that in all of your free time. It's hard to believe, I know, but it's been just, a really great fit for us, because there's so many different ways to engage, and that variety really is very, very helpful.
So Kelly, just knowing that there's been such a long, it's incredible how long you guys have been partners. How have you kind of refreshed your partnership year after year? Is there some, magic brainstorm you guys hold? How do you go about planning and keeping it fresh?
Amy, that is a great question. And we do have a debrief every year after Colorado Gives Day to talk about what we were really excited about, what didn't work so well, and sort of think about ideas for the next year. And then we end up meeting like 3 or 4 times over the course of the year to debrief, to start planning, to think ahead, to plan what we want to do with the incentive fund, and less the incentive fund, but more the prizes to engage more individuals. We also check in on the employee giving, because that's a way for FirstBank to get all of their employees engaged in Colorado Gives Day. And we revamp that based on, this isn't working so well for us, can we do it this way next year? So we do meet, I would say, 3 times a year, debriefing and planning. And then we do, as Kelly mentioned, what we call the tabletop exercise, where we plan a worst case scenario around the technology and all talk collectively about how we would address it. Do you want to add anything else, Kelly?
Well, I would just add, I think it's important to keep the day exciting and refreshing, but I'm okay if the partnership stays stable and maybe doesn't change as much from year to year. There is good in that also.
So we had a question come up in the chat, Kelly, for what the goal is for Colorado Gives Day for next year.
And Kelly nicely answered it, and it's 45 million. And I have to caveat it with a couple of things. One, you're going to say, well, you raised 50 million last year. Why would you go down? I think reading tea leaves, which is not my forte, but we'll take a stab at it, is we believe that the COVID pandemic had something to do with how much money was raised in 2020. People were not able to use their discretionary income in the ways that they typically would on vacations, on eating out, on getting out of the house, and they were in the house and wanting to give something back to their community. So we think that contributed to a stellar year. So we said, with that in mind, let's go for 45 million. I will tell you, we're really hoping that by boosting the incentive fund and getting more sponsors, we can engage their networks in ways that we haven't before, that could potentially introduce new donors to the day and make it an even better day.
So exciting. So how about I know we've done a lot of looking back and things are starting to get somewhat back to normal. What are some COVID lessons that you've learned from this past year from a partnership perspective that you're going to be hanging on to? And then what are some things that you're looking forward to once we are able to all get back together? Maybe Judith, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, it's like going through a Rolodex of lessons learned. I think for Metro Caring, literally overnight, and I know the word is overused, but we truly did pivot, and we had to completely upend our operations inside our facility and shift to a healthy food access distribution in our parking lot. We added deliveries. There was more of an online opportunity for food appointments, for requesting these deliveries. All of our nutrition classes went virtual. Essentially, we started over in trying to make sure that the community was supported, even though there was a 300% increase in the need for food assistance. We were working with half the number of volunteers, and we were social distancing, and there were supply chain shortages of food. I'm sure you all remember that. So we could not have accomplished sustaining that need without our partners. I mean, truly, and Kelly explained it beautifully. There was an outpouring of support, people donating stimulus checks, and really our corporate partners came through in very unique ways. You know, there was a concern that once in-person volunteering wasn't possible and people were working from home and our offering, if you will, of engagement opportunities was dwindling, what was going to happen? And we learned that our true partners are with us even when times are tough, not only tough for our community, but tough for the business, and that those partnerships continue and we find creative and innovative ways to still stay connected. For us, we're going to continue doing some of the work that we learned during COVID into the future, such as our deliveries. And also the fact that the pandemic really highlighted and exacerbated the wealth disparities and the racial inequities in our community. It deepened our root cause work and advocacy work even more, and it actually engaged a greater, broader conversation with our partners and our community members in that work. When the Black Lives Matter movement was really much more high profile, when all the incidents that happened over the last 18 months were in the news, people wanted to have a conversation that Metro Caring had been having for quite some time. So we all of a sudden newly became a resource for anti-racism conversations and advocacy alerts. And all of a sudden, we as, you know, an anti-hunger organization that had been known for food, all of a sudden people were embracing our holistic approach and really looking to join our movement to address hunger at its root. And so we were excited that people were ready to move forward with us in that way. And so there were so many lessons learned, but there's just immense gratitude for the outpouring of support, because we expect that this economic downturn will impact our most, you know, disenfranchised community members for years to come.
Yeah, we keep hearing that the food insecurities, I don't know, was saying that for the next 2 years may ripple. So thanks for all you do.
Absolutely. Yeah, and to echo what Judith said, I mean, that just such a fantastic aspect of Metro Caring is the advocacy work that they do to address those underlying causes that cause food insecurity. Essentially, Metro Caring wants to put itself out of business, and not a lot of organizations operate from that principle. So it's not just about food distribution. And I would say, you know, the pandemic was just a really good reminder to continue to be flexible and innovative in how we support our community and support our nonprofit partners, and just continuing to ask what the needs are, because that really can shift and change over time. And there are just emerging things that pop up that you wouldn't think of. And then, you know, having a Judith, really, having someone that you can keep an open line of communication with, and that communication is, you know, consistent and timely. You can talk about, you know, what the interest of your organization is, your C-suite, your employee base, your partners, your vendors. You can make introductions, and all of that to address the needs of the community, right? So it was a good reminder, and COVID-19 was a tough time, and the year of the pivot, 2020, I think, was for all of us. But just that consistency and not be, you know, really just being able to be innovative and open-minded to what partnership can look like, and not having it in a very strict definition of how it's looked in the past, were my biggest takeaways.
Great. Either of the Kellys have any thoughts to share on that, of kind of, and maybe it's from a measurement perspective. I'm just curious to hear, like, if you had to regroup on what you were measuring, and then if there were some aha moments of, oh, you know, this will be great for us to continue on in 2021 and beyond.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Well, I was just going to say, this is just very light and basic, but just rethinking how your messaging is when, you know, you probably wouldn't do the bear coat last year when people are experiencing very serious hardships. And so just tweaking the messaging to just tweaking our Pay It Forward campaigns. We couldn't be on site to give people money. Restaurants weren't open. And so just very minor things that I would point out from my perspective.
We measured pretty much all of the same things. I think what we found out is we could do it all remotely. I think we had done a tabletop several years ago where something happened in the building and we had to do it remotely. And I think it left people shaken, but to have done a $50 million day remotely and got 50 million in the door and out the door within 10 days of the giving day, just speaks to the incredible staff that we have at Community First Foundation. I can take no credit. They do this and just run with it. They're terrific. And the fact that our board and FirstBank being a member of the board was behind us 100%. And asking what they could do to support us. So I don't know that any measurement changed, but the processes by which we did the work changed dramatically.
Thank you. A last question, because we're getting closer to time, but very, very curious as to how you communicate internally with your stakeholders, whether that's employees or donors, board members, et cetera, kind of ongoing with the work that you're doing and your long-term partnerships. Any quick highlights of how that, what seems to resonate with folks?
We share that info often, and so from the employee giving campaign kickoff, so we create kind of buzz and engagement around that, to sharing kind of the Give It Forward campaign, to talking about it all the way up to the day to generate excitement, particularly for the day, and then afterwards celebrating things. So we talk about it a lot and very unapologetically about how often we talk about it.
And for us, it really varies. This won't surprise anyone, but not everyone reads their emails. So we go beyond emails. Of course, there are emails about, you know, giving campaigns and how we partner with Metro Caring. but it's also on social media, it's on our internet. It's out there in a lot of different capacities so that it gets through to people. And, we find I oversee the metrics of our social media. Where we get the most engagement is definitely our community giving and outreach. Pictures of humans, not stock images, doing good work in the community always resonate, always get a lot more engagement, and are just, there's no substitute for that. We've missed that in the past year, not having some of that content to share, and our staff have missed doing it. So it's been great. And sharing the work with other community partners. For example, I was at a meeting of stakeholders in Southwest Denver, virtual meeting, and Mile High Youth Corps was there, and they were looking for places to place their volunteers. And I said, I know a place who needs volunteers, Metro Caring. So sometimes it's really just about making those connections. And I think so many of us who work in CSR know a lot of nonprofits, know their needs because we're having those conversations. So making those introductions, even if it's not, your partnership or your program, really makes a big difference, because when you connect like-minded organizations that have shared goals, you're just able to amplify the work for all of those organizations and help our community all the more.
Thank you. Any last words, or should we pass it back over to Kirsten and Jess? Thank you guys very much. This has been a great conversation, and really exciting to hear some of when you look at a longer term partnership, what has worked and how you guys have tweaked and grown things over the years. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you, Amy, for moderating today's conversation. Really powerful to hear about the maintenance and the depth of these relationships. You can just see that you all have care and feeding of one another's interests, and certainly open communication and high levels of trust, and genuinely enjoy one another. And that's certainly a foundation of a good partnership. So thank you for being here today and sharing the anatomy of these relationships. So very, very helpful. We have a couple of upcoming events for CIVIC, and just wanted you all to be aware before we close today. So July 8th, we'll be hosting our Ask Me Anything with a couple of experts in the field, DJ Close DeVita and Adib Khan of Delta Dental of Colorado, both CIVIC board members. You should know, if you are reading our emails, that the Civic 50 is live. It's open through September the 1st, and companies with 15 or more employees are eligible. We encourage all companies to engage. Just taking the assessment is a learning experience for your organization. We will have on July 16th a webinar, some insider tips on becoming an honoree. So a wonderful opportunity to connect with some of our 2020 honorees and understand their process a little more deeply. And then our next roundtable is July 29th, and that will be hosted by Brownstein, Hyatt Farber, and Shrek. And that will actually be in person, which we're very excited about. Our first in person in many, many months. So while we are virtual today and not in person, it was still delightful to see you all. Thank you again for sharing your stories. Again, we'll have materials and follow-up and an opportunity to share this recording with you and any of your colleagues who may have missed today. So thanks again for joining us, everybody. Take care.